Hey everybody, this one's by request. I posted a video a few years ago showing how I do composites in Vegas Pro using stock plugins. There's a little bit different method I'd like to show that I use sometimes, also using stock plugins in Vegas, that just gives me a little different results. Now there's a million tutorials out there showing how to pull mats in software, but most of them are intentionally shot in poor conditions with wrinkly, shadowy green cloth that often has a lot of color contamination. I'm going to show you a much more ideal way to work because I often have to turn around material very quickly and I can't spend a lot of time in post-production pulling mats and doing cleanup work. Case in point, I'm at a studio right now where I work fairly regularly, and the director here couldn't allow me to paint the wall behind me chroma key green like I did at my home studio. I needed the green screen to be removable so they could shoot podcast-style productions and no compositing. He happened to have this fabric, and now, just because something is sold as green screen fabric doesn't mean it's ideal. This cloth, which I stretched across a freestanding aluminum frame, is not completely even in its tone. The saturation is less than ideal. There's red contamination. With some tricks, though, I was able to make it work with this technique quite well. The first and foremost important aspect of composite shooting is making sure the green screen is lit as evenly as possible. The screen behind me is lit within a quarter stop, with a little bit of light lost toward the bottom, but well within my margin. The fabric is not completely wrinkle-free, but it's smooth enough that the variations are not a huge problem. My main challenge here was the red contamination. I initially filled the sides of the screen with conventional fluorescent tubes, but I switched to green phosphor tubes to increase the saturation of the screen. I will reiterate that this is not necessary with proper chroma key paint, and lighting the screen evenly is all you need to do. Now, this is a somewhat large green screen, which causes pronounced green spill on the subjects in front of it, so I addressed this by adding LED side lights with quarter-stop magenta gels over them to cancel out some of that. This is a common trick used in broadcast studios that nobody seems to show. Another thing a lot of videos miss is making sure your camera is operating in its sweet spot. Now, most lenses are sharpest around f5.6. In this studio, we're using a Canon C200 at 400 ISO. I couldn't quite get the amount of light I needed in here to stop down the lens to 5.6. because it made the teleprompter harder to read, but we're at 4.5 and that's close enough for most lenses. I should also mention that we're shooting at 1920 by 1080 on the internal SD card MPEG-4 format with 420 color sampling. There's no trickery, no external recorder. I'm not recording RAW. This is a fairly lossy format, which I use to keep the workflow as streamlined as possible. Now in Vegas, I'm sort of recreating traditional chroma key processes. I'm using the channel blend to create a positive of the green channel and adding in negatives of red and blue channels. This essentially makes the green background white and everything else black. Now I'll insert the mask generator and invert it to make the subject white and give me control over the transparency. I'll add in our background and duplicate the video to the top track, setting it to multiply. Now, where the black on the mask layer was is now transparent and the white is opaque with degrees of transparency in between. We retain a lot of details that would get lost with a lot of chroma key plugins. Now, there's some jaggies here, but we can add in chroma blur, which averages out the color variations so our 420 subsampling gets smoothed a little bit. We can also shrink our mask if need be with a median plugin. I set the offset to 0, circular area processing, and I dial in both vertical and horizontal values as low as possible in order to reduce matte lines. Now, in our visible layer, we have some green spill, particularly in my hair. There's a couple of ways to deal with this. One, we can use the secondary color corrector to try and cancel out some of the green. This doesn't always work though, so as a last resort, I can also go back to a traditional film compositing technique, which is to simply reuse the blue channel as our green channel. We'll tweak the gamma a touch to restore skin tones and possibly play with the mixture of the blue-green on the green channel to make the color a little more natural. So with this technique, I can have a couple of presets ready to go and have a promo shot, comped, edited, and uploaded in about 15 to 20 minutes. Questions and comments are welcome as always, and thank you for watching.